tonight, President Trump escalates his feud with the Pope after the pontiff repeatedly criticized his war with Iran. In a Truth Social post, Trump says that he doesn't want a pope who criticizes the president and that the Pope would have never chosen to lead the church if it wasn't for him. He added that Pope Leo should get his act together and stop catering to the radical left. And of course, Trump didn't stop there.
He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. So I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
No, I don't, because Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. I think he's very weak on crime and other things, so I'm not. I mean, he went public. I'm just responding to Pope Leo. And you know, his brother is a big MAGA person, and he's a great guy, Louis. And I said I like Louis better than I like the Pope.
The Pope responded to Trump's criticism today. Listen.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe. I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not looking to make foreign policies with the same perspective that he might understand it. But I do believe in the message of the gospel. Blessed are the peacemakers.
So the Pope basically is saying there, for those who are listening and not watching, that he deals with these issues from a different perspective, from a moral perspective. Do you think that the president, perhaps the White House, understands that distinction? And what do they need to know about it?
Well, if you're going to criticize the Trump administration or President Trump as not understanding foreign policy or being weak in it, that's not the point. The Pope is trying to preach the gospel. The ironic image today is a first day in Africa. He's beginning a tour of the poorest African countries. He's in Hippo in Africa, the birthplace or where St. Augustine was bishop. St. Augustine developed the just war theory of the Catholic Church. The Pope is kneeling there at the tomb of the man who formulated the just war theory, while the president is critiquing this Pope. And the president is saying it is a just war. The Pope is saying it's not. So I'm just really struck by the fact that you have the Pope visiting the poorest countries in Africa, the most war-torn regions, really being a follower of Christ, and you have a president who's depicting himself as actually being Christ. It's very ironic to me.
Look, this is 100% political, okay? This is all about trying to hurt President Trump's Catholic vote during the midterms and Republicans during the midterms. If you look at play out the dots here, David Axelrod goes and visits.
Oh my God, the
last
arrogance
week.
of this.
Are
There's
you not
a
going to let me
billion
finish?
Catholics
Let
in
me
the world.
finish,
They're
please.
all worried
Let me
about Trump's
finish.
election in the
Okay.
midterms?
Clearly,
All
I'm
right,
striking a chord here.
Let's let him finish the thought. and then
David
we can
Axelrod
respond.
goes and visits Pope Leo last week. They're talking about Obama going to visit Pope Leo. Pope Leo's from Chicago. All of a sudden, now Pope Leo is out attacking Trump and the policies of the United States and Israel.
All
in
of
a
a
way,
sudden?
well, in a much more forceful way. You have 3 cardinals come out today attacking the immigration policy. This is all about trying to get the Catholic vote against Trump. And let me
Hal,
add one more
there's just
thing.
a lot of flaws in this argument.
They're going to succeed.
There's no
They're going to
flaws.
succeed.
There's no flaws.
Including that none of the things that you're
Axelrod is
describing
the
as
chief strategist for
new
Obama.
are
He's also from
new.
Chicago, but
The
that's not
Pope
why
is
he
saying
went.
he's not political. Why is he meeting with the chief strategist for both Obama's campaigns
from
and in the White House?
The Pope
Oh,
Francis,
really?
hold on a second.
Would he have a possible reason to meet with a
but
chief
hold on a
political
J.D.
second.
Vance met with the Pope
And
before the last one died.
exactly.
What was he
Pope
doing
Francis
there?
met with J.D. Vance. Pope Francis was extremely critical.
J.D. Vance
of-
is Vice President of the United States.
Hold on a second. Pope Francis was extremely critical of Trump. He was extremely critical of the immigration rhetoric from Trump and his allies. He still met.
Let me add
with
one more
J.D.
thing that Pope
Vance.
Leo's
So
not critical
what's
of.
the conspiracy?
Because let me ask you this.
What's
Why
the
has Pope Leo
conspiracy?
been, when Iran killed 30,000 plus of their own citizens, he didn't call out the Iranian regime at all. He said we need to stop violence. That was very milquetoast. That wasn't calling out the Iranian regime, and yet he's calling out the United States and Israel.
let me let
War
Fosbeck
is
respond
never
to
the
that.
solution. Jesus was a peacemaker.
But he didn't
Blessed
call out the
are
Iranian
the
regime.
peacemakers, he said. He's not taking sides in this. He's trying to live the gospel message and preach it.
This is
it's as simple as
fascinating.
that.
This is a fascinating conversation because I
It's
just
political.
Because
like in the South, we have this saying in church that say, he ain't done with me yet. So I'm going to start by prefacing that. Like, I have a long way to go in my journey and walk. However, to take a side and to actually have first an issue where you attack the Pope takes a certain level of arrogance, which the Bible teaches you against. And then when you have someone who has 5 baby mamas by 3 wives out here on one side against someone who is actually preaching the gospel on the other side, and we're sitting here saying it's political, the audacity of that.
So I have to play this because he ain't done with President Trump yet either. This is just a sampling of over the years.
I'm wondering what 1 or 2 of your most favored Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal.
We're going to protect Christianity. 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ballgame.
Say Bible.
I encourage you to get this God Bless USA Bible.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible.
I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. You know, I've done more for religion than any other president. I don't know how a person of faith can vote for a Democrat. I really don't.
Do you believe that God supports the United States' actions in this war?
I do, because
And have you
God
sought
is
his direction?
good. Because God is good.
So Trump he's not very deep on religious issues, okay? So if the Pope is speaking on a moral level, he's talking about the church's teachings, Trump clearly doesn't get that and chooses then to just attack the Pope on personal and political levels, even though they're not even really speaking the same language.
Well, both the Pope and the Holy See have more cosmic concerns than the tenets of basic statecraft. But I have a question for you, Father, because I'm wholly unequipped to engage in a theological discussion, but I am a little bit familiar with just war theory, and it does revolve around self-defense. And as Hal noted, even if we were to excuse the fact that this regime is a horrible regime that slaughters its own people by the thousands, that blinds women as a matter of policy for wearing the wrong clothing, etc., the Iranian regime kills and attacks Americans on a daily basis. Anybody who works in national security will tell you these people do not sleep. They're continually exercising and finding out new ways to kill Americans. We are forever devoting ourselves to that, and we've gotten very good at it, which is why they don't succeed very frequently. Nevertheless, this is a country that is at war with us and has slaughtered hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans. At what point does this become self-defense?
Self-defense, first of all, is not the only qualification for just war. However, they did not attack us on our territory. They did not bomb our innocent people in the same way that we have waged this war. It's an unjust war, according to the Pope. And so you can't just pick up one thing and say, well, if it was self-defense, therefore,
well,
the just
they
war
do
theory.
attack us on our soil. So is there a
Can
time horizon?
I ask a political question? So at what point do we stop arguing theology with the Pope and actually reach out? And you're talking about politics, right? And so what I would do if I was in your position is I have the ear of the president and say, Mr. President, instead of standing up there and attacking the Pope, let's actually bring him in. Let's actually have a conversation with the Pope. Let's actually, because you're talking about losing Catholic votes, but let's actually do the right thing and actually say, look, whoever the father is in the district, I'm Episcopal, so forgive me, but whoever the father is in the district of D.C., actually sit down with them and talk to them and try to bring them in. Everything does not have to be diametrically opposed. We don't have to rip people apart at the fabric of this country as Donald Trump does, even if he's doing it inadvertently.
Constantly fighting, and I agree that would mend some fences. But the American president is responsible to the American people, and the American people were facing the prospect of an Iranian regime that was developing a ballistic missile shield that would protect its nuclear weapons program, and that would threaten Americans.
The
to say
American
nothing
people
of the
were
fact.
opposed to this war.
They didn't ask the
They did
American
not
people
support
about the war.
Trump's
They didn't go through Congress.
The American
Netanyahu
president
came to
sometimes
America,
takes actions
went into the Situation Room, and against the interests of all of our intelligence, Donald Trump made a decision on his own.
We know
look,
the intelligence.
I
The
guess at
Iranian
the end of the
regime is
day,
trying to kill Americans. It does it all the time.
I don't think it would surprise many
And that
people
is
at home,
just-
whether they are religious or not, whether they are Catholic or not, that the Pope would take a position that the war should come to an end. That seems to me to be a basic premise of a lot of people of faith, is that we should want fewer wars, not more wars, less bombs dropping, not more. I mean, I don't understand why that is so surprising to people.
I don't either. I mean, just look at the life of Jesus. He was executed without resisting it by a regime that was more oppressive. And so just by his very life, when Peter tried to draw the sword, he said, put away your sword. Blessed are the peacemakers. So Jesus' own example of going to the cross is saying that violence is never going to be the answer. This is the result of violence, his outstretched arm on the cross. And so I just think it's really obvious to me, but it doesn't seem to be obvious to a lot of people.
Well, it's also the difference between Christianity and Christian nationalism. That's a whole nother discussion.
There is no such thing, I don't think.
All right.
It's a contradiction in terms.
Father Beck, we appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you very, very much. Next for us, J.D. Vance has had a pretty bad week overseas. In addition to the Iran talks breaking down, voters in Hungary rejected his pleas to re-elect Viktor Orban. Is far-right nationalist movement suddenly dying around the world? We'll discuss.